السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الأطيبين الأنجبين بهم نتولى ومن أعدائهم نتبرأ إلى الله. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. We talked about the funeral services last week and would like to get a yeah, we talked about funeral services like last week, and just to a recap on what was mentioned, and especially in these circumstances that we are in, and may Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala make it as such that we all have a good end. Allahumma ja'al awaqiba umurina khaira. A good life, a good living in this dunya. Atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana, inshallah. Now, the ruling is that in all funeral services, in normal circumstances, when someone has passed away, there are some wajibat to be conducted, and it is mandatory upon everyone. And if someone from the community does it and performs the job, the entire community will be relieved. And this wajib is known as wajib kifai. If someone does it, everyone else will be eased. If no one does it, everyone will be punished. Now, among the wajibat was that someone who is dying should be faced the qibla, such that when the feet should be facing the qibla when he sits up or she sits up, she will be facing the qibla. That is wajib, and it should be done, it must be done. In the hospitals, it's easy, just roll the bed towards the qibla and that wajib you have done. Now, the next wajib which comes in place is the ghusl of that person, of the marhum. And ghusl also, we have got three aghsal. One is with water mixed with kafur, the second water mixed with berry leaves, and the third one is just plain water. Ghusl, we have tartibi, means that the head and the neck should be washed first, the right side of the body, front and rear, then, and after that the left side of the body, and all three aghsal, all three ghusls should be in the same pattern. Then comes the kafan, and it was mentioned that it's three pieces of cloth, a smaller underwear which wraps up the waist of that marhum, and then a bigger piece of cloth which is from the shoulders all the way to below his knees, and then there's another piece sheet which wraps the entire body of that marhum. So it's these three pieces of cloth which is known as kafan. And prior to kafan we have hunut. Hunut means kafur has to be applied on the forehead, on the two palms, on the knees and the two toes. That is, which are known as the masajid sab'a, the 7 places that touch the ground when one is performing the sajda. It is mustahab to add a little bit of turbat, that is khak-e-shifa, the dust of Karbala, to this kafur, and to be applied on the forehead, on the nose and to the palms, not to the knees and not on the toes. And after this it is the salat or the prayer on the marhum, which is wajib, and it was mentioned that we've got 3 versions of it. That what is wajib, and the basic requirements are that you stand facing the qibla, and the body of the marhum, his head is towards your right, feet towards your left. You stand by the chest, and he is laying on his back, and you just say 5 takbir: Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So the Salatul Mayyit is done. And then it is the burial. And the burial also should be such that the grave, when you lay that marhum in the grave, his face should be facing the Qibla. When you tilt a little bit, the chest should be facing the Qibla. And that is the burial, and then you've got the talqeen. Now this is the procedure. If, God forbid, circumstances emerge where these wajibat cannot be observed, then we get to a next level, and that is the 911. And in that, what is wajib is that if that ghusl tartibi is not possible, then it is the irtimasi. Irtimasi means you just, if there's a pool of kafur water, or if there's that is not possible at all, then you just ditch the body of this marhum in that pool with the intention of ghusl, and then do it 3 times, and all those 3 ghusls are done. If that is also not possible, then it is the tayammum. Tayammum has to be done with the hands of the marhum. Now the best way to do is that you stand behind the head. Now the marhum is lying on his back. You stand behind his back, place something on his chest like some dust or some turbat or some dust, and then with the hands of the marhum, before they are stiff, before the body cools down, you bring the 2 hands, you hit them on that dust, and then with the 2 hands of the marhum, bring them on his forehead, and then towards the 2 sides of the forehead, again hit the 2 hands on the dust which is on his chest, and then with the left hand over his right hand, and with the left over his left, with the right over his left hand. So that is that tayammum to be. Now this tayammum should be 3 times. One is instead of kafur, one instead of the berry leaves, and the third will be instead of that khalis water. Once this is done, just apply a little bit of that hunut if that is possible, and then the prayers to be offered, just the 5 takbir, and then the shrouding if it's possible to be done. If it's not possible, just place the shroud with the body and then bury the body. Now the best way, as it was mentioned the other day, that the first thing, because we don't know what will happen down the road, so best thing is that as an ihtiyat, as a precaution, just give that tayammum to the marhum before they bag it, before the body cools down, and we don't know what will happen down the road. May Allah make it as such that every one of us has a good end here and a good start there, inshallah. This was a little bit about the about the funeral services that would take place in emergency circumstances. So the wajib is that all of it has to be done. If that wajib, all of it is not possible, then you go to the wajib, the basic wajib. Like the basic wajib was the 5 takbir in the Salatul Mayyit, or for example the shrouding also. If it is not possible, just place it over the body, or the tayammum also. If it is not possible for it to be done, if they don't allow you to touch the body of the marhum, then you have to do that tayammum with your own hands on that body. If that is also not possible, then what can be done? So that was regarding the funeral services to be offered, and that doesn't waive. We have to do as much as it is possible when it comes to these funeral services. Talqeen also, you can do it after the burial. If for whatever reason they buried the body and we were not permitted, then in that case we come by the grave and we stand by the grave and we offer the Salatul Mayyit. And the Talqeen, you can do it from the grave, both of the Talqeens. This was regarding the funeral services very briefly. Now the other thing is regarding the topic that we are on, and that is bonding with Imam al-Asr alayhi salatu wassalam. When we look into the books of ahadith that have been reported regarding Imam al-Asr alayhi salatu wassalam, we do not have that many ahadith after Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam for any Imam, as many as ahadith that we have for Imam al-Asr alayhi salatu wasalam, reported from both the schools, because they are also waiting for the Messiah, we are also waiting for the Messiah. The difference between they and us is that they believe, that is the Ahl Sunnah, they believe that Mahdi will be born in the end of time, whereas we believe that he has already been born and he is from the descendants of Ali and Fatima alayhim salam, the great grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and he is in Ghaibat at the moment. I'll quote you a hadith here. It is from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and the Prophet, he says that Ubashirukum bil Mahdi, I give you the glad tidings of Mahdi. يبعث في أمتي على اختلاف من الناس وزلزال يملأ الأرض قسطا وعدلا. He will rise in my nation, then when mankind will be worried, will be disunited, and he will fill the land with equity and justice. As it will be filled with tyranny and oppression, the dwellers of the sky and the earth will be happy with him. He will distribute the wealth sihahan. Now those present in the presence of Rasulullah, they said that someone said sihahan, and what is sihahan? The Prophet in reply says that with equity among the people, and that is Allah, he will give away, distribute the wealth with justice and with equity. And then Allah will fill the hearts of the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam with ghina, with needlessness, and his justice will be all encompassing. Now when we talk about justice, adala, now in the presence of Amirul Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salatu wassalam, there was a lady with 2 children, and she had 3 pieces of dates. Now what she did is that she gave up one date to one of the children and the other one to the second. And the third one that was with her, she sliced it into 2 pieces, gave half of it to the first and the half to the other. Imam said to her, addressing her, that is justice, that is adala. Now this is that basic adala. But when the Imam alayhi salatu wassalam returns, the adalat that he will introduce is far more than that. So you will feel that the entire creation of Allah, it's filled and embedded and encompassed with justice. That is one. Now that's one. Now we are talking about bonding with the Imam, and how can this return? It can be hastened. I'll quote another hadith here. This is from Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, and the reporter is Fadl bin Abi Qurra. He says, قال سمعت أبا عبد الله عليه السلام يقول أوحى الله إلى إبراهيم أنه سيولد لك فقال للسارة. Now this Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, he reveals to Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, says to Prophet Ibrahim that you will be blessed with a child, you will be blessed with a son. Now he comes and gives this good news to his wife, Sarah. فقال لسارة فقالت أألد وأنا عجوز. When Prophet Ibrahim, the messenger of Allah, who is infallible, who is revealing the word of Allah to his wife, she doubts in the statement and she says, أَأَلِدُ وَأَنَا عَجُوز. Will I give birth when I'm an old lady now? فَأَوْحَى اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ. Allah reveals to Prophet Ibrahim أَنَّهَا سَتَلِدُ وَيُعَذِّبُ أَوْلَادُهَا 400 سَنَةً. Now this is something we have to be very cautious in how we take it and how we understand. And that is, whatever we do as an individual, as a community, it plays a role, and the consequences it will create in our life and in our descendants. As a result of the doubt she had in the statement of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah says that she will give birth, she will have a son, plus that son or the descendants of his, they will suffer for 400 years because of that statement which she uttered, and that is not abiding or not taking the word 100%. Now, this is something we have to train ourselves a lot, that when it comes to the Ma'sumin alayhimus salam, and when they say something, we have to abide by their word. If it is a mujtahid, if it is a hakim, if it is a wali faqih, if an order, a command has been given, we have to stand by that command. That word or that verdict, it must not fall. If we look back into Karbala, here when the messenger comes to the house of Habib ibn Madahir, and that note was from Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, wife of Habib, she is a mu'mina. Habib himself, he's a very rich man, he's a businessman, very rich. Now she, when they were having their lunch, she says, I feel that a noble messenger is coming to us with a noble message. And not to, and soon after her statement, someone knocks at the door, and he says that I am a messenger from Hussein ibn Ali, a message for Habib. Habib comes and opens that letter, and she is panicking that what is the message from Hussein ibn Ali? What is the message that this messenger has brought forth? Habib says that Imam has invited me to Karbala. She says, go. He says, if I go, what will happen to you? What will happen to this empire of mine, this business? What will happen to the children? They will be orphaned, you will be widowed. She says in reply, was it not the household of Rasulullah? They also were widowed. Their children also were orphaned. What happens if we are widowed and if we are orphaned, and if your business, your empire, if it collapses, it doesn't matter. She was just breathless. She says the invite of the son of Rasulullah is waiting. You can't keep him on hold. He says, I was testing you. So we have a lady here, wife of Habib. Now when it is said that Sayyidus Shuhada, he said that the best of the companions who were ever given to anyone were given to me. This is one of the reasons. We see that how when Abu Abdullah scans the creation and says that the best of the best were given to me. She says that doubts in the statement of Prophet Ibrahim, as a result, Allah says, you will be blessed with a son, plus your descendants, they will suffer for 400 years. بِرَدِّهَا الْكَلَامَ عَلَيَّ. Because she doubted the statement, not the statement of Ibrahim. She doubted the word of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. قال فلما طال على بني إسرائيل العذاب ضجوا وبكوا إلى الله 40 صباحا. Now then, when the wrath of Allah, or when they were suffering, the Bani Israel, for 40 days they wept, they lamented, they cried. فَأَوْحَى اللَّهُ إِلَى مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ. Allah then instructed Prophet Musa and Prophet Harun alayhim as-salam, يُخَلِّصَهُم مِّن فِرْعَوْنَ, to go and free them from Fir'aun. 70 ومئة سنة. Says فَحَتَّ عَنْهُمْ 70 مئة سنة. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala gave them a reduction from those 400 years. 170 years were slashed. That suffering of another 170 years was removed. And Allah instructed Prophet Musa and Harun to go and save Bani Israel from the horror and from the terror of Fir'aun. وقال Abu Abdullah. Now Imam al-Sadiq continues after mentioning that hadith, says هكذا أنتم, you also will be the same. لو فعلتم, if you also pleaded, if you also lamented, if you also cried, if you also prayed, لَفَرَّجَ اللَّهُ عَنَّا, Allah will have that relief for us as well. فَأَمَّا إِذَا لَمْ تَكُونُوا, and if you do not do that, فَإِنَّ الْأَمْرَ يَنْتَهِي إِلَى مُنْتَهَى. This task or this affair of the return of the Imam, it will continue indefinitely, or it will be delayed indefinitely. So here says and invites us all towards this tawassul, towards this faraj of Imam al-Asr alayhi salam, that like Bani Israel who pleaded for 40 days, who cried for 40 days, Allah gave them a reduction of 170 years of that misery they were going through, and Allah sent Prophet Musa and Harun to save them. Here, if we also plead, if we also lament, especially in these days that we are in isolation, or if we are all indoors, and we ask Allah Ta'ala to help us in all these different ways and methods, like Ziyarat Ashura, Ziyarat Al Yasin, all of these different observances that we have, should be done so that the return of the Imam is hastened. Because this world that we are living in is a very merciless world. For them, killing one person or killing the entire humanity, it does not matter. They can remove from the surface of the earth however many they want. They've done it in the past, they are doing it now. And when you see this kind of a rule, which is being seen and witnessed by the globe, so the minds of everyone, they should move to a direction that all of the humanity should feel that this rule or this global rule or this new world order is not what we are after. There has to be an order which is kind, which is compassionate, which is based on mercy, which loves and cares for others, and that is only and only by the return of Imam al-Asr alayhi salatu wassalam. Now, with reference to Imam, it was mentioned the other day that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam has said that Law adraktuhu, if I perceived my great grandfather, I would serve him for the duration of my life. Likewise, Imam Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam also states that in adraktul qa'im, Qa'im is the name of Imam al-Asr alayhi salam, that if I also perceive the Qa'im of Ali Muhammad, nasartuhu, I will help him just like a soldier who is by his master and by his commander in wars and battles, and I will also sacrifice myself in the service of my great great grandfather. He is the fifth Imam and he is the 12th. One of the du'as that helps a lot in this day and age that we are in is dua which you all know, Allahumma arifni nafsak. That is to strengthen our faith, our iman, our aqidah that we have in Allah, in Rasulullah, in the imamat, and in particular in the imamat of Imam al-Asr alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma arifni nafsak. In lam tu'arifni nafsak, lam a'rif nabiyyak. Allah, make it as such that I know you. And if I don't know you, I cannot recognize, I cannot know your Prophet, your Habib, your Rasul. And if I don't know your Rasul, فَإِنَّكَ إِن لَمْ تُعَرِّفْنِي رَسُولَكَ, if you do not identify or make known to me your Rasul, I will never know who your argument and your hujjah is. And Allahumma arifni hujjatak. Allah, identify for me your hujjah, your argument. And if you do not do that, إِنَّكَ إِن لَمْ تُعَرِّفْنِي حُجَّتَكَ ضَلَلْتُ عَنْ دِينِي, I will be misled. This is the dua that we have to recite in this day and age that we are in, and it is the time of the Akhir Zaman, you can say, or the era of the return of Imam al-Asr alayhi salatu wassalam. Now, I'll continue with this. And there is this question which was asked quite a lot, and they are these clips and these videos that are circulating a lot in the social media, and that is that it is the signs of Qiyamah, and it was mentioned repeatedly. No, We believe Imam has to return, Imam has to rule, and after the Imam there is an period and an era of Raj'at, and after the era of Raj'at it will be the day of judgment. Now what is this Raj'at? Now Shaykh Mufid rahmatullahi alayh defines Raj'at as such, that the definition he has in his books, that Inna Allah yaridu qawman min al-amwat ila dunya, that Allah, He will return a few nations or a nation from among the dead to this dunya, fi suwarihim. That is, if I was to return during the time of the Raj'at of the Imams, I will return in my own form, however I am. Not that I'll be refurbished and in another creation. No. Whatever I am, I will be returned in the same form. However you are, you will be returned in the same form in that era of Raj'at. Fi suwarihim allati kanu alayha. And then Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, He will give them the charge, and whatever their desires were and whatever they wanted to serve and they wanted to do, and all those opportunities they could not avail, or either they were killed or that time wasn't enough, or it could not materialize for them to serve, says that will happen in that era of uh, uh, Raj'at. And says that in the Qiyam Mahdi Ali Muhammadin alayhi salam, this will happen during the rising of our Mahdi from Ali Muhammad alayhi salam. In another quote here from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, قال أيامullah thalatha. Ayyamullah, that is the days of Allah, they are three. Yawma yaqumul qa'im, that is the day when Imam al-Asr, he will rise. Wa yawmal karra, Yawm al-Karra, it's the day of the return. That is the era of Raj'at. That is after Imam al-Asr, a few others will return, like Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, like Amir al-Mu'mineen, like the Holy Prophet, they will return. That is called Karra. Karra means return. Wa Yawm al-Qiyamah, and the day of judgment. These 3 days are the Ayyamullah, as mentioned by our sixth Imam, Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. In another quote, he says, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يُؤْمِنْ بِكَرَّتِنَا وَلَمْ يَسْتَحِلُّ, and says that مُتْعَتَنَا. Says, he who doesn't believe in this Raj'at is not from among us. So Raj'at is part of our belief, that we believe in Raj'at. We believe in the Mi'raj of Rasulullah, that he went in person in his human body, and he traveled all the way to all those skies and he was shown. That is all part of our aqidah, part of our faith. From Quran, I'll quote you some ayat. فَالَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ مُنْكِرَةٌ وَهُمْ مُسْتَكْبِرُونَ. Now this ayah in Quran, it states that فَالَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ, those who are faithless or those who do not believe in the hereafter, bil-akhirah. قُلُوبُهُمْ مُنْكِرَةٌ, their hearts, they are denying and they are proud. وَهُمْ مُسْتَكْبِرُونَ. Now Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he gives the tafsir of this ayah. So the ayah says that those who do not believe in the akhirah, their hearts, they deny because they are proud. Imam says, فَالَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ, those who do not believe in the akhirah has to be interpreted like this. إِنَّهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالرَّجْعَةِ أَنَّهَا حَقٌّ. They are faithless towards the Raj'at, that is the return of the rule of Allah, or the infallible, or the ma'sumin, or the good, the best of the best. They are faithless to that era of Raj'at. قُلُوبُهُمْ مُنْكِرَةٌ, their hearts, they deny due to pride. Imam says that munkiratun over here means يعني أنها kafiratun, that is, they deny. Kafir is kafir. Now in Arabic, kafir is said to someone like a farmer. You call him a kafir because he is someone who hides the seed or the grain in the ground. And because he does that, he is kafirun, he hides it. And kafir is kafir because he hides his faith, he hides his iman. Now here says that someone who hides this faith of Raj'at is hum mustakbirun. They are among those who are proud and they hide this iman in Raj'at. Now there's another book called Ghaibatun Nomani, and I don't think all these books you have them in English. I don't know. Says that إن القائم من ولد علي عليه السلام له غيبة كغيبة يوسف. Here says that Imam al-Asir, who is from the descendants of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Amirul Mu'mineen, lahu ghaybatun. This Mahdi, he has a ghaybat. Ghaybat is this occultation. He has a ghaybat. Ka ghaybati Yusuf, like the occultation of Yusuf. Prophet Yusuf also was away from his father, from his family for 40 years. Ka ghaybati Yusuf. Just like Prophet Yusuf, he was away, Imam al-Asir from the descendants of Amirul Mu'mineen, he also will be away. وَرَجْعَةٌ كَرَجْعَةِ Isa, and he will have a return, just like the return of Prophet Isa. Prophet Isa, he is alive, and he will return. Says Imam al-Asir also will have a return, like the returning of Prophet Isa ibn Maryam. ثم يظهر بعد غيبة مع طلوع النجم الأحمر. And then continues with this lengthy hadith, says that he will appear after the ghaybat when such signs will take place: rising of the red star, devastation of Ray, that is Iran, Persia, and then you will see all this perishing, and then presaging of Baghdad and the emerging of Sufyani. All these are the signs that will take place, and Imam will return after that. About 70 ayat in Quran, they talk about Raj'at. I'll just mention 3 of them here so that you get an idea of what exactly this Raj'at, and how when we have this faith and belief in Raj'at, what does it mean? The first ayah says, وَيَوْمَ نَحْشُرُ مِنْ كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ فَوْجًا. Yawma, on the day when we will resurrect from every nation a party. مِمَّنْ يُكَذِّبُ بِآيَاتِنَا فَهُمْ يُوزَعُونَ. From among those who reject our communications. There's another ayah which says that وَيَوْمَ نُسَيِّرُ الْجِبَالِ وَتَرَى الْأَرْضَ بَارِزَةً وَحَشَرْنَاهُمْ فَلَمْ نُغَادِرْ مِنْهُمْ أَحَدًا. And on the day on which we will cause the mountains to pass away, and you will see the earth a leveled plain, and we will gather them and leave not any one of them behind. Now here when you look into these 2 ayat, a person, he comes and mentions these ayat in the presence of our 6th Imam, Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, and say, Imam here talks about this ayah, says, يَوْمَ نَحْشُرُ مِنْ كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ فَوْجًا. They say that it is regarding the Day of Judgment, when Allah will raise a party or a nation or a few. Imam says the Ahlus Sunnah, they believe that Allah, they believe that Allah, when He raises a party or a nation or a few, they believe that this ayah is for the Day of Judgment. Once this is not right, Imam says, if it is the Day of Judgment, then why will He raise just a nation, just a few, just a party? When He wants to raise a few, choose and select a few, and then raise and resurrect them, it means that is not the Day of Judgment. So it is something before the Day of Judgment. Min kulli ummatin fawjan wa yada'i al-baqin. So why He wants to resurrect and raise a few and then leave the others behind? So it is not the Day of Judgment. La walakinnahu fi raj'ah. And then Imam says, no, that will happen, that is raising and resurrecting a nation, a group, a few, that will happen and take place in the era of Raj'at, and that is the return of the rule of the noble, and that is prior to the Day of Judgment. And then he says, وَحَشَرْنَاهُمْ فَلَمْ نُغَادِرْ مِنْهُمْ أَحَدًا. So Imam says that فَلَمْ نُغَادِرْ مِنْهُمْ أَحَدًا, this will be for the Day of Judgment. That is, none on the Day of Judgment will be left behind. Everyone, all of them will be raised. That is for the Day of Judgment. A few being raised and resurrected, that is for the era of resurrection. That's one. Now, this was a little bit technical. If you put these ayat together and then look at them, it will be easier for you to understand. Now, this one is simple. The second ayah says that Inna lanansuru rusulana walladhina fil hayat ad-dunya wa yawma yaqumul ashhad. I'll give you the translation first. Most surely, we will help our messengers and those who believe in this world's life and on the day when the witnesses shall stand. So in this ayah, Allah says, Inna, we, definitely we, with ta'keed. Inna means definitely, with emphasis, we. What we will do? لَنَنْصُرُ رُسُلَنَا. La in Arabic is another emphasis. Nansuru with emphasis, Allah says, we will definitely help our envoys, our ambassadors, our messengers. Now, when you look back into the lives of the Prophet, all of them, 124,000, with the exception of Prophet Isa and Prophet Khizr, because these two they are still alive. Everyone else was killed. Everyone else was not helped. Allah says, Inna lanansuru rusulana, that we will definitely help our envoys and our messengers. Were all of them helped? No. When we look into Rasulullah, he wasn't helped as he ought to have been helped. Amirul Mu'mineen wasn't. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he wasn't. They had desires, they had aspirations, they wanted to serve. And all these enemies, the front who stood against them, they did not allow them. Imam Mujtaba alayhi salam, how madloom, and with all that oppression, he couldn't serve, he couldn't work, he couldn't do what he wanted to do. So Allah, when he says that Inna lanansuru rusulana, that we will definitely help, but they were not helped, they died. So this word of Allah, it's still valid. Allah never lies. We say Sadaqallahu al-Aliyyul Azim. Just bring that hadith to your mind. Sarah, she doubted the word of Ibrahim, which was the message of Allah, as a result of which 400 years Bani Israel, they suffered. So we believe in this ayah, لَنَنْصُرُ رُسُلَنَا, that Allah says, we will definitely help our envoys, and that help which wasn't rendered to them whilst they were living and whilst they were alive, it has to be fulfilled, and that will be fulfilled in the era of Raj'At. They will be brought back to life, and the opportunity will be given to them, and all those helps and aids and services and imdad and nusrat, whatever you call, they need will be given to them. Allah will definitely help them. So that is that iman that we have based upon this. This is the second ayah. Now Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, Wallah fir raj'a, that this ayah, when he says that lanansuru rusulana, we will help you, we will help our ambassadors. Wallah, Imam says, by God, this is in the era of Raj'at. And then Imam continues, says that, do you not see that, did you not know, or do you know that most of the prophets were not helped في الدنيا وقتلوا, and were killed. والأئمة من بعدهم قتلوا, the Imams after them were also killed. لم ينصروا ذلك في الرجعة, and they were not helped. And that help will be rendered to them in the era of Raj'at. And the Raj'at means after Imam al-Asr, the return of the infallibles, the Ma'asumeen, the prophets. Now, who are they? How many are they? Inshallah, we'll come to that point as well. The third ayah, then this is the last. There are 70 ayat in Quran that talk about Raj'at. Now, this is the last for this session, third. Says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا كَافَّةً لِلنَّاسِ بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says that, and we have not sent you but to all of the mankind as a bearer of good news and a warner. Now this ayah and our faith, just see that. The Nabuwwat of Rasulullah, it is, or the Risalat of Rasulullah, it is not only for the Muslims. Here he says, مَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا كَافَّةً لِلنَّاسِ. We have sent you for the entire humanity. Now, the entire humanity, do they know the Prophet? For example, China. For example, other parts of the world where this message hasn't reached them, they don't know. So, this ayah of Allah, which says that we have sent you for the entire humanity, it hasn't materialized. So, it's only part of the humanity who have faith in Rasulullah, who believe in Rasulullah, who know Rasulullah. So, that kafatan linnas, the entire humanity, that hasn't taken place yet. So, again, it's the word of Allah, and He doesn't lie, and it has to be implemented. So when will that happen? That Rasulullah's risalat and his prophecy will be globally accepted by every single person, that is in the era of Raj'At, when the Imam, that is the return of the Ma'sumin alayhim salam. So here, it hasn't been materialized, it has to materialize, and that will be in the era of Raj'At. Now, Imam Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam, he further says that this ayah also is regarding the era of Raj'at, that is, Ma arsalnaka illa kaffatan linnas, that we have sent you for the entire humanity. Kaffatan linnas. Kaffa means in all. Linnas, again, it's another emphasis for all of the humanity. Now, when you look into the riwayat also here, I'll just mention a few here, not a lot. The first set of riwayat, the first batch of riwayat, they state that, now who will return? أول من يكر في رجعته الحسين ibn Ali. The first one to return in the era of Raj'at is Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salatu wassalam. Now, if you get time tonight, you can look into this book. You have an English translation of it. It's called Mizanul Hikmah, Scale of Wisdom, written and compiled by Ayatollah Ray Shahri. It's a beautiful book and a beautiful translation also. And you look into the chapter, the Bab Raj'at. There you will find all the riwayat that he has. Because this Mizanul Hikmah, which is in English, it's the concise version of it. You've got another one which is in 10 volumes, but you'll get a lot of information from those riwayat that are already present in this Mizanul Hikmah. So the first one to return is Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, and then this hadith says that he will live and he will rule on this planet so long that his brows, they shall fall on his eyes. And the hadith says that he will rule for 40,000 years. It will be the rule of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam. Then when we say that وَتُمَتِّعَهُ فِيهَا طَوِيلًا, for a long time may they benefit from this rule on this planet. وَتُمَتِّعَهُ فِيهَا طَوِيلًا, for a long time. The second hadith, it's from Bakr bin Uyun, someone who says that Inna Rasulullah wa Amirul Mu'mineen sayarja'an, that is Amirul Mu'mineen, reporting from Imam Baqir alayhi salam, that Rasulullah will return. Amirul Mu'mineen also will return in the era of Raj'at, sayarja'an, verily soon the apostle and Amirul Mu'mineen also shall return. The third set of riwayat, they say that it's this pertaining the return of all other prophets. They say that the ayah in Quran, which is in Surah Al Imran, ayah number 81, says, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ النَّبِيِّينَ لَمَا آتَيْتُكُم مِّن كِتَابٍ وَحِكْمَةٍ ثُمَّ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مُصَدِّقٌ لِمَا مَعَكُمْ لَتُؤْمِنُنَّ بِهِ وَلَتَنْصُرُنَّهُ. Now, for this ayah, says that certainly Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, He has taken a covenant through the prophets, that certainly what I have given you, that is the book and the wisdom, and a messenger was sent to you all, and you must believe in him, and you must help him, you must aid that messenger. So half of it has been done, that he has sent the messenger, he has given that wisdom, that hikmah. But what about this help rendering to the prophet? That hasn't taken place. He says you must help the prophet. Now when we also are waiting for the Imam, and the desire and the dua that we have, that we be in the service of the Imam alayhi salam. Now, returning of the Imam, it's good, but if he returns and he everything we have to do and he does all the hard work, that is not good. Allah says that la tansurunnahu, that is, you must definitely help. That help has to be rendered. Inshallah, will be after this when we will talk a little bit about the calls that will be heard in the end of time, and where the chaste women and the chaste ladies, when they hear the divine call, they will send their husbands and their brothers and their sons, and they will send them to serve the Imam alayhi salam. So this service, or rendering the khidmat and service to the Imam, we have to train ourselves now, so that when the Imam returns, we are able to offer our services to him. In Surah An-Naml, Surah number 27, ayah number 83, says, وَيَوْمَ نَحْشُرُ مِنْ كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ فَوْجًا مِمَّنْ يُكَذِّبُ بِآيَاتِنَا فَهُمْ يُوزَعُونَ. And on the day when we will gather from every nation a party from among those who rejected our communications, then they shall be formed into groups. Now, like the nation of Prophet Musa, just 27 people, they were faithful to Prophet Musa, only 27. Ashab Kahf, now here it says that from the nation of Prophet Musa, 27 will return in the era of Raj'At. Ashab Kahf, all of them will return, 7 or 8. From the nation of Prophet Isa, a few will return. Now every prophet, every successor, again says that a few of them will return. Imam, when he returns, says that the first and the second, and now I just omit this chapter, that who all will return from all the Zalimeen, from the oppressors. Amirul Mu'mineen, he will resurrect Muawiyah. Imam Mujtaba also will resurrect Muawiyah. So the best of the best and the worst of the worst, the band A noble and the band A criminals, they will return. Imam Rida alayhi salam will resurrect Ma'mun. Likewise, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam will bring back Harun. And the staunchest of mu'mineen and the staunchest of the faithless, they will be brought to life. And this will be way before the day of judgment. Now the day of judgment says, إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. Now the clips that are floating, and they say that this Hajj has been abandoned, so it will be the day of judgment. Now you can put it this way, that Qiyamah means the Qiyam of Imam al-Asr alayhi salam. That is, he will rise, and after that, whatever Allah wants. Because when we talk about the day of judgment, all these ayat and all these surahs that we have in Quran say that إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. You will see that there will be a tremor, a shaking, and nothing will exist. Everything will perish. وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا, so on and so forth. Now this was in ayat, in riwayat. Now we see in ziyarat. Now this is something that you and I, we recite quite a lot. In the ziyarat also, we have one of the ziyarat which is recited by the pure grave of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam. If you look into the beauty of these ziyarat, like for example, we have this 27th of Rajab, there the ziyarat of Amirul Mu'mineen is recommended to be recited. On the Mab'as of Rasulullah, it is mustahab to recite the ziyarat of Amirul Mu'mineen. So the two, when it is an occasion of Rasulullah's ziyarat of Amirul Mu'mineen, when it is an occasion of Amirul Mu'mineen like Ghadir, ziyarat of Rasulullah is to be recited. Now by the noble head of Amirul Mu'mineen, inshallah, it opens and all of us be blessed with ziyarat of the Ma'asumeen alayhimus salam. There we have a phrase which reads as such: Assalamu alayk ya ayatillahi al-udhma. That is, salam be upon you. That is Amirul Mu'mineen. Who is he? Allah's greatest sign, the greatest sign of Allah. Now when you look into the riwayat and ayat of Quran, says wherever in Quran, now this is again a hadith, says that wherever in Quran you see ayatina, our signs, that means the Imams alayhim salam. Now, Ayatullah al-Udma, the greatest sign of Allah, is Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Now, this hadith you can find it in Mahajjatul Bayda. Again, you don't have that in English. Now, from among the riwayat, the ziyarat that we have, the ayat that we have, when Imam al-Asr alayhi salatu wassalam was born, you've heard, and inshallah you will hear on the 15th of Sha'ban, that Imam, he recited this ayah upon his birth. وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. Says, and we desired, this is in Surah Al-Qasas, ayah number 5. Says, and we desired to bestow a favor upon those who were deemed weak in the land. Ma'asumin, they are not weak. Rasulullah, he wasn't weak. Amirul Mu'mineen was not weak. Imam Hussein was not weak. Hazrat Fatima alayha salam wasn't weak. Now all these are great personalities who are strong. But what happened is that the political rule or the rulers or the enemies of Allah who stood against the Imams and the Ma'sumin, they deemed them to be weak, or they made them weak in the land. They who were deemed weak in the land. And then Imam, when he was born, he recited this ayah, and to make them, Allah has desired to make them the Imam, who these zalimeen deemed to make them weak. Allah has desired them to be the Imam. Imam meaning the first person, the first authority, or the highest authority. That is the desire of Allah, and that will definitely take place. And to make them the Imams and make them the heirs. With naj'alahum al-warithin. So mustad'af means a strong who was made weak, just like what they did in Karbala, what they did with the Prophet, or Harun la'natullah alayhi, he made Imam Kazim alayhi salam weak. Or Wahhabism with the shrines of all the Askariyin, or what they wanted to do with the sacred shrines. So they wanted to deem them, make them weak, but Allah has desired strength and power and height and might for them. The second is that the ayah which was just recited, وَنُمَكِّنَ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنُرِي فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ وَجُنُودَهُمَا مِنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ, and to grant them power in the land, and make Fir'aun and Haman and their hosts see from them what they feared. So hadith from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says that this ayah pertains to the return of Fir'aun and Haman. So even these staunchest of enemies who stood against the prophets there, they will return. Fir'aun will return, Haman will also return. Or in Surah Nur, ayah number 55, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says, وَعَدَ اللَّهَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. This is the promise of Allah to the mu'mineen and those who did good. لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ, that we will definitely make them the rulers on the earth. كَمَا اسْتَخْلَفَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ, just like the past. وَلَيُمَكِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ دِينَهُمُ الَّذِي ارْتَضَىٰ لَهُمْ. And then he says that we will most surely, definitely establish for them their religion which he has chosen for them. What religion? This is the deen. Which deen? Not every deen, not every Islam. When we talk about deen, it is that deen which was presented, and that is the last version or the most updated version of deen presented by Rasulullah on the day of Ghadir. A deen which doesn't have Amirul Mu'mineen in it is not complete, is not perfect. It will not lead to prosperity, to success. A deen which has Amirul Mu'mineen in it, and that is until the era of Zuhur and Raj'At, Shia. That is the deen that Rasulullah wants. And then says, يَعْبُدُونَنِي لَا يُشْرِكُونَ بِي شَيْئًا. That is, they who have faith, who worship me, and who have no shirk to anyone besides me. Now, this khawf that we have, that was mentioned in these ayat, this khawf existed in the past, it will exist also, and it will be there until the return of the Imam. This khawf even existed then when Rasulullah passed away, and then all of those Mala'in, they united by the house of Ali and Fatima, and they came there and they disrespected her and they bashed the door on her. And all those 40 Malayan, they are also among those who will return, and they will have to taste and they will have to go through all those tests and trials in the era of Raj'at. Now, here says that this khawf, this fear, it is there, it will be there, and the riwayat that talk about the end of time, they say that 2/3 of the population of this world, it will perish as a result of these white deaths or red deaths. White death, it's like what's happening nowadays. It's the killing or the perishing of people due to viruses and diseases and waba and plague, etc. Red death, it's bloodshed. So here says that there is khawf, there is fear. One of the names, in ziyarat also we do have this, in the ziyarat of Friday and also in the ziyarat al Yasin, we've got these two terms mentioned with the name of Imam al-Asr, that khawf is there, fear is there, although he doesn't fear. But because of that fear and that khawf which exists, we don't know where the location of the Imam is. He has to keep on constantly change his location because of the enemies or the in all forms and formats that are against him, and they want to somehow remove him and get rid of him so that the shaitan and iblis, they dominate and they live. So that khawf, it still is there. Now, in riwayah, in ziyarat also, we do have that. One of the ziyarat that we have, that is ziyarat Ashura that we are reciting nowadays, that says, فَأَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ الَّذِي أَكْرَمَ مَقَامَكَ وَأَكْرَمَنِي أَن يَرْزُقَنِي طَلَبَ الثَّعْرِكَ مَعَ إِمَامٍ مَنْصُورٍ. Allah, by this honor that you've given to me, and this honor that has been given to me as a result of the honor given to you, أَن that you bless me, طَلَبَ الثَّعْرِكَ مَعَ إِمَامٍ مَنْصُورٍ, that I be able to be part of them, with them, who avenge the blood of the Imam. So that is when. And who is going to be the avenger of the blood of Imam Hussein? Imam al-Asr. My desire and my wish is that when Imam starts his mission to stand against those who stood against Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, I be with them. When will that be? If I die now and Imam returns tomorrow. So my desire is that I be with them, means that I will be brought back to life. I will be resurrected. Or for example, in most of these ziyarat, you have it in ziyarat Jami'at al-Kabira. Mu'minun bi-iyabikum. My faith is that you will return. Musaddiqun bi raj'atikum. I am faithful of your raj'at, of your return, and I testify the return of yours. Muntadhirun li amrikum. I am waiting for your command. When will that be? It will be in the era of Raj'at, before Qiyamah. Or again in the same ziyarat we say, Hatta yuhyallah ta'ala deenakum. Until Allah, He revives your deen. His deen, bikum, through you, via you. وَيَرُدَّكُمْ فِي أَيَّامِهِ. And then He will return you in His days. It was mentioned in that hadith that I recited, that ayyamullah thalatha. That is, one is the return of the Imam, one is the raj'at of the Imams, and one is the Day of Judgment. So when he says that وَيَرُدَّكُمْ فِي أَيَّامِكُمْ فِي أَيَّامِهِ, that Allah returns you in His days, return on the Day of Judgment makes no sense here. Doesn't mean, because He wants to rule. On the Day of Judgment, it's not a ruling day, it's the day of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. It is His word, it is His command, and it is the day in the hell and the heaven that will be given then. So this rule of Allah, which will establish, it will be prior to the Day of Judgment. وَيُظْهِرَكُمْ لَعَدْلِهِ. And the justice of Allah, it will prevail. وَيُمَكِّنَكُمْ فِي أَرْضِهِ. And Allah will make you rule and dominate you, fi ardeh, on His land. We don't have it now. We have a rule on this dunya of zalimeen, of oppressors, of tyranny, of evil. So this has to this has to change to the rule of justice and adl, and that will be in the era of the Imam alayhi salam. Or for example, in another ziyarat, in the same ziyarat, ziyarat jamia, there's another statement that says, وَيُحْشَرُ فِي زُمْرَتِكُمْ, that Allah resurrect me with you, في زُمْرَتِكُمْ, وَيَكِرُّ فِي رَجْعَتِكُمْ. Yakirru means to return. Make me return fi rajatikum, in your rajat. So that is again in this ziyarat. So what do I do? Recite ziyarat jami'ah, recite ziyarat ashura, and recite dua ahad. In all three of these duas and ziyarat, we have this desire to return in the rule and the era of the Imam alayhi salam. Or for example, in dua ahad, which you recite every day. And if you don't start it and recite it, especially nowadays, when you recite it a few times, you will memorize it. You've got quite a few versions of it. You have Dua al-Ahd, you have Ziyaratul Ahd, you have Ahd al-Thani. For now, for those who want to start, do it with that Ziyaratul Ahd. Allahumma balligh mawlaya sahib al-zaman. Dua al-Ahd, Allahumma, yeah, Rabb al-Nur al-Azim. And then we've got another Ahd al-Thani. So any one of them, recite. Now in this Dua al-Ahd, we've got a phrase which say that إن حال بيني وبينه الموت الذي جعلته على عبادك حتما مقضيا. Allah, if death intervenes between me and him, which is certain, which is definite, and which will happen, فأخرجني من قبري, bring me out of my grave, مؤتزرا كفني, shrouded, Shahiran Saifi, with my sword with me ready. Now this is again being mentioned that I, whose desire was to serve the Imam, I want to return in the era of Imam if I depart prior to his return, and I want to return fully available, ready in his service. Mujarridan qanati mulabbiyan da'wat ad-da'i. Mulabbiyan da'wat ad-da'i, with that talbiyah, labbaik, that hearkening to his call. That is, this desire to be in his service, and we need to remind ourselves that we have to be obedient to him, that is, in obedience to him. Again, in this dua, it's the same thing. Or for example, in these ziyarat, in ziyarat al Yasin also, you have a similar phrase. There we say, Ashhadu annaka hujjatullah. That is, you are the argument of Allah. Antum al-awwalu wal-akhir. You are the first one and you are the last one. وَأَنَّ رَجْعَتَكُمْ حَقٌّ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهَا. And your return is haqq, no doubt in it. So again, see that this Raj'At has been mentioned in all of these statements of these ziyarat. Or for example, in one of the other ziyarat that we have in, it says, وَأَحْيَانِ فِي رَجْعَتِكُمْ. Allah, bring us back in the rule of the Imam alayhi salam. So one of the beliefs that the Shias have is this belief in Raj'at. With the Imam, some will be brought back to life, and when some of the awliya, some of the mu'mineen, the ma'asumeen, whoever had an incomplete task, they will be brought back to life. Now there's this book, Siyahat al-Sharq. If you get time, you can look into it. You have an English translation of it, and that is Journey to the Unseen. In that book, Marhum Quchani, Atullah Abbas Quchani, he mentions in that book that, now this is being reported by Shaheed Mutahari. Shaheed Mutahari, he says in that book that, he was a young student in Qom, and Marhum Atullah Quchani, Abbas Quchani, had written that book. He says that I asked him, how come you've written the life after death, your life after death, whilst you are still alive? He says that it's all these visitations or mukashifat that I saw and certified by ayat and riwayat. I put them together in the form of a book. And he says that it was my first day in Barzakh, in my grave, and he who is showing me around in Barzakh is a person called Hadi. And I'm all alone in my grave in that new horizon, in that new place, no one with me, and it's just isolation and very um, painful. He says that I saw this Hadi. Hadi is the guide. He says, comes to me and mentions that all these ziyarat that you had performed throughout your life to the Imams, to the Ma'sumin, to the Imamzadas, that is the descendants and the companions of the Imams, all of them, they want to come and pay back that visit to you, that ziyarat you had to them today. He got overjoyed. Now, this is something that we have to keep in our mind, that all of these ziyarat that we have towards the family of Ma'sumin, none of them goes waste. And also there is an adab that if you come to town, it is upon me to come and see you, visit you. And it is upon you to pay back that visit of mine and come and see me. So a visit to you, it has to be paid back by you visiting me. Now we visited the Ma'sumin, their descendants, their family, their companions. That visitation has to be paid back. And here Hadi says they've come back to pay that visit, and all of those visitations you had, they've come. He says, I got overjoyed that someone is coming to visit me in this barzakh. And then he says that after that, Habib ibn Mazahir, he takes the charge and he is the guide who is showing me around in barzakh. Habib ibn Mazahir comes to me, says that I've come to you with a message from Hazrat Zainab Salamullahi alayha. She has sent her salam to you, and she has sent this message that all of those tears that you shed and you cried for us, the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, all of them, they are safe, and all of them will be paid back to you later. But now it's that salam of Zainab that was given to me in my grave. Says when I got the salam, I was overjoyed and I couldn't handle and I couldn't take care of myself. There says at a distance, I see two young lads standing across and they are armed. I asked Habib that, do you need to be armed in Barzakh? He says, no, you don't need to. Says, then why are those two young lads? They are armed. Says that one of them is Abbas, the other is Ali Akbar. Their desire was to serve the Imam of their time, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and that desire and that wish of theirs could not materialize in this dunya, so they are waiting for the return of Imam al-Asr alayhi salatu wassalam, for him to return, for them to come and serve the Imam alayhi salam. So this desire that we have, it is a valid desire, was the desire of the Ma'sumin alayhim salam, was the wish, was the want of all of the noble, and also the Imams also, they had the same desire. And we also wish and ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to help us, to keep us firm on His path, and especially in these days when all from left and right you've got all these balas and tests and trials pouring upon us. Allahumma arifni nafsak, innaka in lam tu'arrifni nafsak lam a'rif rasulak. اللهم عرفني رسولك إنك إن لم تعرفني رسولك لم أعرف حجتك. اللهم عرفني حجتك إنك إن لم تعرفني حجتك ضللت عن ديني. اللهم أرني الطلعة الرشيدة والغرة الحميدة وجه الناظر بنظرة مني إليه وعجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه. وسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. If you have any question, I'm here to answer. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Can you explain the